After weeks away, I returned home, eager to see my son, but I was locked out of his apartment, handed a brutal note from my daughter-in-law telling me to get out of their lives. The son I'd sacrificed everything for, even paid for that very home, then called to confirm it was over. I simply took it all in, the sting turning into something else entirely. What followed was a battle they never saw coming. Like and share this story, and tell me where you are watching from. The stale scent of recycled airplane air still clung to Clara's clothes as she stepped out of the taxi. 3 weeks of grueling negotiations in Tokyo had left her exhausted, but the thought of seeing Michael, her only son, always brought a spark back to her weary eyes. She walked towards the familiar, sleek entrance of the luxury apartment building, a building she knew intimately, a building she had helped Michael and his wife, Selena, call home. As she reached their floor, Clara fumbled in her handbag for the spare key she kept for emergencies, a key Michael had given her years ago. Her fingers brushed against the cool metal, but before she could insert it into the lock, the door to the manager's office across the hall swung open. David, the building manager, a man whose usual demeanor was one of polite deference, now stole before her with an uncharacteristic stiffness. "Mrs. Peterson," David began, his gaze avoiding hers, "I'm afraid I can't let you in." Clara's brow furrowed. "Can't let me in? David, what are you talking about? It's Clara. My son Michael lives here." David cleared his throat, a nervous habit she'd noticed before. He held out a crisp, folded piece of paper. "I've been instructed by Mr. and Mrs. Peterson. They asked me to give you this." Confusion morphed into a prickle of unease as Clara took the note. Her heart began to thump a little faster as she unfolded it. The words, written in Selena's elegant, looping script, seemed to leap off the page, piercing her very soul. "Controlling old woman, get out of our lives." The world seemed to tilt. The elegant hallway, the soft lighting, David's averted eyes, it all blurred into an abstract smear of disbelief. Selena, her daughter-in-law, the woman she had welcomed into her family with open arms, the woman she had grown to cherish almost as much as her own son. The note felt like a physical blow, stealing her breath, leaving her gasping for air in the silent corridor. Clara's mind reeled back to just over a year ago. Michael and Selena had been struggling, dreaming of a place of their own, but unable to afford the astronomical down payment for a condo in this coveted part of the city. That's when Clara had stepped in. Without a moment's hesitation, she had liquidated a substantial portion of her investments, poured her life savings into their future. She had provided the entire down payment for this very luxury apartment and had quietly, consistently continued to cover their exorbitant maintenance fees, something she had insisted Michael keep secret from Selena, wanting to avoid any awkwardness. She simply wanted them to be happy, to have the life she knew they deserved. Their gratitude, their hugs, Michael's tearful promise to repay her when he could, it had all felt so genuine, so full of love. Now, standing on the threshold of the home she had helped build for them, with Selena's venomous words burning in her hand, Clara felt a cold dread creep into her stomach. She turned from David, her legs suddenly heavy, and shuffled towards the elevators. Her own apartment was 3 floors up, a stark reminder of her proximity, a proximity she had always believed was a source of comfort, not contention. Inside the elevator, the polished steel walls reflected a stranger's face back at her, a pale, bewildered woman with wide, unseeing eyes. What had happened? What could possibly have transpired in the mere 3 weeks she had been away, working tirelessly, thinking of them? Had she missed a crucial sign? Had her love, her support, somehow been misinterpreted, twisted into something ugly and unwanted? As the elevator glided silently upwards, her phone buzzed, and she looked at the screen, and for a fleeting moment, a sliver of hope ignited. Michael, he must have heard. He would explain. He would fix this, she answered, her voice a fragile whisper. "Michael, what is going on?" His voice, when it came, was devoid of warmth, stripped of any familial affection. It was a cold, distant tone that sent a shiver down her spine, far more chilling than Selena's written words. "Mom, I think we need some time apart. Selena feels suffocated by you, and honestly, so do I." The words struck her like a physical force. Suffocated? By her? Her mind raced, grasping for explanations. Michael, what are you saying? Suffocated? I don't understand. It's constant, Mom, he continued, his voice hardening with each accusation. The checking in, the unannounced visits, always trying to know what we're doing, telling us what we should do. Selena says you're trying to control our lives, and I guess she's right. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes. Unannounced visits? Control? Michael, that's not fair. I always called before I came over, always. And I've only ever tried to be supportive, to help you both. Her voice cracked with hurt. How is helping you secure your home, wishing you well, trying to control you? A desperate thought, a last-ditch effort to pierce through the wall of his coldness, pushed its way to her lips. Does Selena know, Michael? Does she know about the down payment? About the maintenance fees I've been quietly covering all this time? Silence hung heavy on the line, thick and suffocating. Then Michael's voice roared back, laced with a venom she had never heard directed at her. You're lying. You're trying to manipulate me just like Selena said you would. You're just trying to make me feel guilty. Michael, no, I swear. But he cut her off, his words sharp, final. Don't call us, Mom. Don't try to visit. We'll contact you when we're ready. The line went dead. The silence that followed was deafening, a vast, echoing void. Clara stood there, the phone still pressed to her ear, the dial tone a mournful hum. The elevator doors opened on her floor, but she barely noticed. Her legs gave way, and she slid down the wall, collapsing onto the plush carpet of her own apartment hallway. The note from Selena lay crumpled in her hand, the words now a prophecy fulfilled. Her son, her only son, had betrayed her utterly and completely, severing ties with a cruelty that ripped her heart to shreds. The days that followed Michael's chilling call blurred into a grayscale existence. Clara moved through her elegant apartment like a ghost, the silence a heavy shroud around her. Every corner held a memory, a phantom echo of a child's laughter or a young man's earnest conversation. The betrayal was a gaping wound, but the isolation was a slow, consuming ache. Her mind kept replaying fragments of her life, particularly the years after James's sudden, unexpected death. James, her beloved husband, gone too soon, leaving her a young widow with a bewildered toddler. The world had shifted on its axis that day, forcing Clara to become both mother and father, provider and protector. She remembered the sheer exhaustion, the relentless grind of working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Nights were spent hunched over textbooks, pursuing an MBA through correspondence courses, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an unwavering belief that a better future for Michael depended solely on her resilience. Every sacrifice, every late night, every postponed dream of her own was dedicated to Michael's well-being, to ensure he never felt the absence of his father and his opportunities. His smile was her sunrise, his success her measure of worth. She recalled the immense pride that swelled in her chest when Michael earned his college scholarship, a testament to his intelligence and her tireless efforts. And then, his wedding to Selena. Clara had welcomed Selena into their small family with an open heart, seeing her as the daughter she never had. She remembered the joy, the hope, the beautiful vision of their future together. She had truly believed Selena was a blessing, an addition that would expand their happiness, not shatter it. Lost in this haze of sorrow and remembrance, Clara barely noticed the outside world until her phone rang, a persistent, jarring sound in the quiet apartment. It was Susan, her oldest and dearest friend, a woman who had weathered every storm by Clara's side. Clara, I haven't heard from you in days. Susan's voice was warm, laced with concern. I know you just got back from Tokyo, but you're usually so good about checking in. Everything all right? Clara choked back a sob. No, Susan, nothing is all right. It's Michael. Susan didn't press, simply suggested, come over. Let me make you some dinner. You need to talk. And so Clara found herself across from Susan at her cozy kitchen table, a plate of untouched pasta before her. The words tumbled out, a torrent of pain and confusion. The locked door, David's awkward stance, Selena's chilling note, and Michael's cold, unforgiving phone call. Clara wept, the tears a release for the suffocating grief she had held captive for days. Susan listened intently, her face a mask of deep concern. When Clara finished, her voice raw and hoarse, Susan reached across the table and clasped her hand. Clara, this doesn't make sense. Michael adores you, always has. He'd never speak to you like that, never cut you off so brutally, not without a very good reason. He did, Clara whispered, recounting Michael's accusations of her being controlling, suffocating. His voice, Susan, it was like speaking to a stranger, so cold. Susan's brow furrowed hard. I hate to say it, Clara, but I've always had my suspicions about Selena. She's subtle, but I've seen it. The way she'd give those backhanded compliments, always framing your generosity as something else, like that antique clock you gave them. The memory of the clock surfaced, a fresh wave of hurt. It had been an exquisite piece, a family heirloom from James's grandmother, intended as a housewarming gift. Clara had carefully wrapped it, presenting it with love. Selena's reaction had been cool. Oh, it's lovely, Clara. A bit old-fashioned for our modern decor, but I suppose it's a nice way to mark your territory. Clara had dismissed it then, attributing it to Selena's quirky sense of humor. But the words had always lingered, a faint discord. A few months later, the clock, a sturdy, well-made piece, had mysteriously fallen off the mantelpiece and shattered beyond repair. Selena had called, feigning distress, assuring Clara she was devastated. At the time, Clara had felt a pang of sadness for the lost heirloom, but now a chilling realization dawned. She's been poisoning Michael's mind against you for months, maybe years, Susan stated, her voice firm, pulling Clara from her thoughts. Twisting everything you've done out of love into something malicious. And now she's escalated. Clara's eyes widened, connecting the dots. Michael's accusations of her trying to control them, of checking in too often. Selena had weaponized Clara's quiet financial support, her deep concern, portraying it as overbearing and manipulative. The down payment, the maintenance fees, all the secret sacrifices she had made to protect Michael's pride. A pride he had inherited from his father, James, who had always insisted on standing on his own 2 feet. That quiet help, meant to alleviate their burden, to give them a head start, had been twisted into the very chains Michael accused her of forging. Back in her apartment later that night, Clara's fingers trembled as she logged into her online banking. She scrolled through years of discreet transfers, each one a testament to her unwavering love, her unwavering belief in her son's future. Payments to the condo association, extra funds subtly deposited into Michael's account with vague descriptions like gift or household support. Not once had she expected recognition, let alone this bitter resentment. It was all there, a financial diary of her devotion. Just as she closed the browser, a notification popped up. A new email from Michael. Her heart gave a painful lurch. Perhaps he had calmed down, thought things over, realized his mistake. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickered within her. She clicked it open. The subject line was stark. Legal notice, cease and desist. Her breath caught in her throat. The body of the email was cold, formal, written in legal jargon, not by her son, but by an attorney. It detailed a demand for her to cease all contact with Michael and Selena, to refrain from visiting their residence, and threaten legal action if she failed to comply. It was a complete severance, a declaration of war. The emotional wound that had been slowly bleeding now felt like a gaping, festering chasm. 2 agonizing weeks crawled by after the cease and desist letter arrived. Each day felt like an eternity, steeped in a pervasive silence that screamed louder than any argument. Clara, however, was not one to surrender without a fight, especially not for her son. Despite the chilling legal threat, she knew she had to try one last time to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. Taking a deep breath, she once again found herself standing before Michael and Selena's apartment building. David, the building manager, eyed her with a mix of apprehension and sympathy this time. Mrs. Peterson, I truly shouldn't. Clara cut him off gently. David, please, just deliver this. It's important. She pressed a carefully folded letter into his hand. It was a heartfelt plea, a desperate invitation for a private talk at Cafe Blue, their familiar, cherished meeting spot. The place where Michael had first told her he was serious about Selena. The place they had celebrated countless small victories. She had chosen it because it held so many good memories, hoping the echoes of happier times might soften Michael's hardened heart. The following afternoon, Clara sat at a secluded table in Café Blue, a cup of lukewarm tea before her. Her gaze was fixed on the entrance, her heart thrumming an anxious rhythm against her ribs. Every minute stretched into an eternity. 15 minutes past their agreed time, the cafe door chimed, and Michael walked in. But he wasn't alone. Selena, her hand possessively intertwined with his, was right beside him. Michael's face was unreadable, a guarded mask. Selena, on the other hand, wore a triumphant smirk that sent a cold shiver down Clara's spine. They slid into the chairs opposite her, the table suddenly feeling like a battleground. "Michael," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly despite her efforts to keep it steady. "I don't understand any of this. What happened? How could things have changed so drastically? I'm so confused, so hurt." Before Michael could even respond, Selena interjected, her voice sharp, deliberately using Clara's first name, a subtle but unmistakable shift in address that felt like a calculated insult. "You know what you did, Clara?" Michael, still avoiding eye contact, echoed Selena's accusations. "Mom, you were smothering us. The constant check-ins, showing up unannounced. Selena was right, it was too much." Clara took a deep breath, trying to inject calm into her voice. "Michael, that's simply not true. I always called before I came over, always. And as for showing up unannounced, can you give me one example?" She looked directly at Michael, hoping to jog his memory, to remind him of the truth. "Remember that dinner with Selena's boss? The one where you specifically asked me to come because you wanted me there for support? You called me, Michael, you invited me." A flicker of something, recognition perhaps, or discomfort crossed Michael's face, but it was quickly overshadowed by Selena's dismissive laugh. "Oh, that, Clara, you came half an hour early and tried to take over the conversation. It was incredibly embarrassing. We had to pretend you were just dropping by for a moment before you left for another engagement. You completely twisted the narrative in your head." Clara stared at Selena, aghast at the blatant gaslighting, the audacious reimagining of a perfectly pleasant evening. Michael's gaze remained fixed on the sugar dispenser on the table, refusing to meet his mother's eyes. "And what about your lies, Mom?" Michael interjected sharply, his voice laced with the same anger as their last call. He finally looked at her, his eyes cold and accusatory. "Like you didn't lie about paying our maintenance fees? About controlling our finances behind my back? What kind of mother does that?" The accusation stung, not because it was untrue, but because the truth had been twisted into something ugly. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "Michael, I'm so sorry I wasn't honest about that. I truly am. But I did it to protect your pride, to give you a leg up without making you feel beholden. Your father, James, he was so independent, so proud. I knew you inherited that from him. I wanted to help, to ease your burden, not to control you." She swallowed, her throat tight with emotion. "It was out of love, Michael. Never anything else." Before Michael could respond, Selena leaned forward, a wide, almost predatory smile spreading across her face. "Well, speaking of the future, we have some news." She paused, milking the moment. "I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." The announcement hung in the air, a sudden, unexpected bombshell. Clara's initial reaction was a surge of pure, unadulterated joy. A grandchild! The thought, even amidst the bitter confrontation, sent a warmth through her shattered heart. But then, as she looked at Selena's triumphant expression and Michael's still averted gaze, a chilling understanding dawned. This wasn't a shared joy, it was a weapon, an ultimatum. Her access to her grandchild would now be entirely dictated by Selena, a leverage point in their insidious game. Despite the profound hurt and the unsettling realization, Clara forced a smile, a congratulatory one, though it felt like a brittle muck. "That's wonderful news," she managed, her voice thick with unshed tears. "Truly wonderful." She reached into her bag, pulling out a small, elegantly wrapped package she had brought just in case. Inside was a cherished silver picture frame, an antique that had belonged to James's mother. It was meant to hold a photo of their first child. Now it contained the tiny, grainy image of Michael's own ultrasound photo, a memento Clara had always intended to pass down, a symbol of continuity, of family. Selena eyed the frame with a fleeting expression Clara couldn't quite decipher before her cold mask returned. She checked her watch with an exaggerated gesture. "Well, Michael," she said, her voice dripping with dismissiveness, "your 15 minutes are up. We have other plans." She stood, pulling Michael to his feet with a firm tug on his arm. Michael cast a brief, conflicted glance at Clara, then allowed himself to be led away, leaving Clara alone at the table, the silver frame and the ghost of a grandchild's image, her only companions. The lukewarm tea grew colder, mirroring the chill that had settled deep within her soul. The sting of the cafe confrontation festered, pushing Clara deeper into the abyss of her despair. The joy of the impending grandchild was overshadowed by the bitter taste of manipulation, making the isolation even more unbearable. Days blurred into nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every dismissive glance. The pain was physical, a constant ache behind her ribs. It was Susan, ever vigilant, who finally broke through. She arrived at Clara's door unannounced, her eyes reflecting a fierce determination. "That's enough, Clara. You're not doing this alone." She practically dragged Clara out, insisting on a walk in the park, a simple change of scenery. As they walked, the crisp autumn air doing little to lift Clara's spirits, Susan revealed a crucial piece of information. "My niece, Olivia," Susan began, her voice soft but firm. "She knew Selena's college roommate years ago. They reconnected recently, and Olivia mentioned your situation." Susan paused, choosing her words carefully. "Apparently, Selena has a history, a pattern. She's notorious for isolating her partners from their families." Clara stopped walking, the implications of Susan's words sinking in like stones. A history, a pattern. It wasn't just her. A sudden, unsettling clarity washed over her. Selena wasn't just trying to control Michael. She was projecting. Her own unresolved mother issues, as Clara now suspected, were being played out, with Clara as the unwitting target. The pieces began to click into place. The subtle hostility, the territorial remarks, the systematic dismantling of Clara's relationship with Michael. A cold resolve began to replace the despair. Clara wasn't just a heartbroken mother. She was a woman whose son was being manipulated, whose grandchild's future was at stake. She needed to act. She recalled Michael's work habits. He often worked remotely, and on Wednesdays, during Selena's routine prenatal appointments, he sometimes opted for the quiet bustle of Café Bleu. It was a long shot, but it was a chance. The following Wednesday, Clara dressed carefully, trying to project an air of casual nonchalance. Her heart hammered as she entered Café Bleu, but there he was. Michael, hunched over his laptop at a corner table, a half-empty coffee cup beside him. She approached him quietly, as if by chance. "Michael," she said, her voice even, without a hint of the turmoil raging within her. "Fancy meeting you here." She pulled out a chair opposite him and sat down, feigning a regular, unburdened visit, as if the last few weeks hadn't happened. Michael looked up, his expression a mixture of surprise and unease. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Clara slid a slim, unmarked manila folder across the table. "It's not about money, Michael," she stated, her gaze steady, unwavering. "It's about truth." He hesitated, then slowly opened the folder. Inside were meticulously organized documents, copies of her bank statements, clearly detailing the down payment for their condo and years of maintenance fee transfers. Next were printouts of emails from Selena to David, the building manager, explicitly requesting that Clara be barred from the premises, labeling her an unwelcome intrusion. Finally, there were screenshots of text messages, Michael's own texts, inviting Clara to that very dinner with Selena's boss, clearly contradicting Selena's twisted narrative. Michael's brow furrowed as he read Selena's emails, a visible frown creasing his face. His eyes paused on the text messages, lingering on the date, the time, the clear invitation from his own phone. A flicker of doubt, faint but discernible, crossed his features. Clara watched him, her heart aching for the son she knew was buried beneath layers of Selena's influence. "I know what she said, Michael," she said softly, "and I know how she twisted things. But Michael, I would never lie to whoever lied to you, not about something so important." He continued to scan the documents, his expression hardening when he came across another set of notes. Excerpts from Clara's own journal, detailing Selena's subtle condescension, the snide remarks about the antique clock, the gradual isolation. Are you investigating my wife, Mom? He asked, his voice laced with renewed accusation. No, Michael, Clara replied calmly, choosing her words carefully. This information came to me through a mutual friend of Susan's. It corroborated what I was already seeing, what was happening to us. She paused, then pressed on, her voice firm with a mother's righteous anger. Michael, why did you send me a cease and desist letter? Why did you believe every negative thing that she said about me without even asking for my side, without even giving me the courtesy of a conversation? He looked up from the folder, his eyes finally meeting hers. For the first time in weeks, Clara saw not just anger, but genuine conflict, confusion. I don't know what to think anymore, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. These documents, they don't match what Selena told me. It's a lot to process. Just then, Michael's phone buzzed, vibrating across the table. He glanced at the screen and his shoulders slumped. Selena, she's done early. I have to go. He started hastily collecting his laptop and backpack. Take the folder, Michael, Clara urged. He shook his head, a flash of fear in his eyes. I can't. Not now. She'll find it. It's all right, Clara said, a quiet strength in her voice. I have copies. Just think about what you've seen. Really think. As he stood to leave, Clara reached out, her hand gently touching his arm. I love you, Michael. Nothing will ever change that. He didn't pull away, didn't flinch. He just looked at her, his conflicted gaze lingering for a moment longer than usual. I'll call you, he mumbled, then turned and walked quickly out of the cafe, leaving Clara alone once more, but this time with a faint glimmer of hope in her heart. Don't miss what happens next in this story of betrayal and cunning. Like, share, and subscribe to follow Clara's journey to its shocking conclusion. 3 days, 3 agonizing days stretched into an eternity after the cafe encounter. Clara existed in a state of suspended animation, every ring of her phone, every unexpected sound, sending a jolt of nervous energy through her. Had Michael called? Was he processing the truth? Or had Selena tightened her grip, successfully nullifying any seeds of doubt Clara had managed to plant? The silence was a heavy torment. On the 4th morning, just as Clara was attempting to force down a piece of toast, a violent pounding erupted at her front door. Before she could even reach it, the door burst open. Selena stood on her threshold, her face a mask of incandescent fury, her eyes blazing with an unholy rage. She was breathing heavily, as if she had run all the way up the stairs, bypassing the elevator in her haste to unleash her wrath. What was that little stunt at the cafe, Clara? Selena spat, storming into the apartment without an invitation, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Your pathetic little ambush? That little folder of evidence? Clara remained outwardly calm, though her heart hammered against her ribs. She had expected this, though perhaps not with such a dramatic entrance. It wasn't an ambush, Selena. I merely presented Michael with the truth. Selena laughed, a brittle, mocking sound. The truth? You're pathetic, Clara. A lonely old woman who can't let go of her son. Can't stand that he has a family of his own now. Clara met Selena's enraged gaze, a quiet certainty hardening her own. I think you're projecting, Selena, Clara said, her voice steady and clear. You're describing your own behavior, aren't you? Selena's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, a flicker of surprise and discomfort, before her rage returned, even fiercer. How dare you? You know nothing about me. My mother was the same way, manipulative, controlling. It took me years to break free from her manipulation, and I won't let you do the same to Michael. To my child. The admission hung in the air, a raw, unexpected truth that both confirmed Clara's suspicions and added a layer of twisted justification to Selena's actions. But Clara refused to let it soften her. Selena's past trauma didn't excuse her present cruelty. Stay away from us, Selena snarled, pointing a trembling finger at Clara. Stay away from my baby. You've lost, Clara. Michael believes me, not you. He's seen through your games. Clara raised an eyebrow, a hint of steel in her gaze. Is that why you're here, threatening me, Selena? Because you're so confident in your control over him? Selena faltered, her certainty momentarily cracking. He's coming to pick me up in 20 minutes. I told him I was just running an errand nearby. He doesn't know I'm here, and when he sees you, he'll know you haven't listened. It will be the final nail in your coffin. She smirked, a cruel, triumphant expression. Clara took a slow, deliberate breath. The mention of Michael arriving, the explicit admission that he didn't know Selena was there, it was all part of Selena's calculated drama, meant to provoke a scene, to further alienate Michael. But Clara saw another angle, a way to turn Selena's greed against her. She walked to her desk, pulled out her checkbook, and uncapped a pen. Would money help, Selena? She asked, her voice calm, devoid of emotion. Is that what this is about? Selena scoffed, attempting to maintain her air of indignant fury, but Clara saw the slight hesitation, the almost imperceptible widening of her eyes, the way her gaze darted towards the checkbook. The mask of rage cracked, revealing a glint of naked avarice. What are you talking about? She demanded, though her tone had lost some of its previous ferocity. Clara wrote quickly, precisely, filling in the figures. I'm talking about a parting gift, she said, tearing out the check and holding it out. The amount, bold and clear, was for $50,000. For you to disappear from my son's life. To ensure Michael and his child are free from your influence. Selena's eyes fixated on the check, her breath catching. Her hands shot out, snatching it from Clara's fingers. She scrutinized the numbers, then flipped it over as if checking its authenticity. A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face, completely replacing her earlier rage. The transformation was startling, chilling. Smart decision, Clara, Selena purred, tucking the check into her purse. I'll tell Michael you have agreed to respect our boundaries, that you finally understand. She gave Clara one last smug look, believing she had won. Clara remained stoic, refusing to give Selena the satisfaction of a dramatic reaction, denying her the confrontation she craved. She simply walked to the front door and held it open. Goodbye, Selena, she said, her voice flat. Selena smirked, then walked past her and out the door, a triumphant swing in her hips. As soon as the door clicked shut, Clara's composure shattered. She leaned against the frame, trembling, but a grim satisfaction began to bloom in her chest. She pulled out her phone and dialed Susan. She took the bait, Clara whispered, her voice a mix of exhaustion and triumph. $50,000. Clara, what did you do? Susan exclaimed, shocked. It's not over, Clara replied. My apartment has security cameras, Susan, concealed ones. Every word, every threat, every confession she just made, including her admission that Michael didn't know she was here. It's all recorded. A moment of stunned silence from Susan. Then, you clever, clever woman. Now we wait, Clara said, a steely glint in her eyes. If she cashes that check, her true motives will be undeniable, and Michael will see it all. 6 months unfurled, marked by the slow rhythm of the seasons changing, but for Clara, time felt both stagnant and fleeting. She immersed herself in work, finding solace in the predictable demands of her career. She took up painting, dyeing, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the gray tones that had colored her life. Yet beneath the veneer of new hobbies and professional dedication, the ache in her heart for Michael remained, a persistent phantom limb. She had seen the $50,000 check cashed within days of Selena's visit, confirming the depth of her daughter-in-law's avarice. But Clara had held back, resisting the urge to deploy the recorded evidence. She believed, fundamentally, that Michael had to discover the truth himself, that genuine understanding couldn't be forced. It was a crisp December evening, the first snowflakes beginning to fall, when Clara was carefully stringing lights on her Christmas tree. The familiar scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air, a nostalgic comfort, when the doorbell chimed. Her heart leaped. No one ever just showed up anymore. She opened the door. Standing there was Michael, looking thinner than she remembered. His shoulders slumped. His face etched with a weariness that went beyond physical exhaustion. His eyes, though, held a flicker of something she hadn't seen in months: vulnerability. He entered slowly, almost hesitantly, his gaze sweeping over the familiar Christmas decorations. His eyes landed on the box of ornaments Clara had left on the coffee table. He reached in, his fingers closing around the silver star topper. A cherished item from James, a tradition for as long as Michael could remember. "You kept it," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "Of course I did," Claire replied, her voice thick with emotion she struggled to suppress. It's our tradition, Michael." He turned to her then, his eyes still heavy with pain, finally meeting hers. "I've made a terrible mistake, Mom." The words, simple yet profound, unleashed a flow out of relief and sorrow within Clara. They sat at the kitchen table, the scent of fresh coffee slowly filling the space, a familiar ritual Clara hadn't shared with her son in what felt like a lifetime. Michael spoke in hushed tones, revealing the fractured pieces of his life since their last meeting. He and Selena had separated 2 months ago, their arguments escalating until the truth, in pieces, began to surface. Their divorce, he explained, would be finalized after the baby's birth. Clara's heart ached for his pain, the silent suffering he must have endured. "I'm so sorry, Michael," she said, her voice gentle. He nodded, a tear tracing a path down his cheek. "We'll have joint custody," he confirmed, his voice cracking. "It's a girl." He then told her everything. He had discovered the $50,000 check in Selena's purse, tucked away in a hidden compartment, along with a recent bank statement showing the deposit date. It was the very same day Selena had returned from her supposed errand, claiming she had gone to make peace with Clara. The blatant lie had shattered something fundamental within him. Driven by a burgeoning doubt, Michael had then reviewed their building's security footage, confirming Clara's earlier casual visit to the cafe. He'd gone to his bank, cross-referencing Selena's accounts with his own, verifying the years of quiet financial support Clara had provided. The truth was undeniable, meticulously documented. The final blow, he explained, had come when he stumbled upon old emails on Selena's computer. Messages to her friends, bragging about finally getting the controlling mother-in-law out of the picture and detailing her strategies to manipulate him. The cruel words, so utterly devoid of compassion, painted a picture of a woman he suddenly didn't recognize. Tears streamed down Michael's face, mingling with the coffee he had forgotten to drink. "How could I have been so blind, Mom?" he choked out, burying his face in his hands. "How could I have believed her lies about you, my own mother?" Clara reached across the table, taking his trembling hand in hers. "She was very convincing, Michael," she said, her voice filled with a profound forgiveness. "And you loved her. We tend to believe the people we love, especially when they're so adept at crafting a narrative." He broke down then, the months of guilt, confusion, and betrayal finally erupting. Clara rose and pulled him into her arms, holding him tight as he sobbed, releasing the pent-up anguish into her embrace. "I've missed you so much, Mom," he whispered, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "Can we start over? Can we rebuild what we had?" Clara smiled, a fragile but powerful bloom of hope spreading through her chest. "We never lost it, Michael," she said, pulling back just enough to look into his eyes. "It was just waiting for you to find your way back." Together they finished decorating the Christmas tree, falling back into their easy, familiar rhythm, the comfortable silence punctuated by soft laughter and shared memories. As Michael carefully placed the silver star on the topmost branch, Clara looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time in a long while. She saw not just her son, but a strong, resilient man, a reflection of James finding his way through darkness back to the light. 3 months later, Clara stood in the hushed warmth of a hospital room, a profound sense of peace settling over her. She watched Michael, his face soft with wonder, as he cradled his newborn daughter. He looked up, his eyes shining, and carefully passed the tiny bundle to Clara. "Her name is Rose," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "Rose Evelyn Holloway." Tears welled in Clara's eyes as Michael looked at her, his love evident in every line of his face. "I want her to be named after the strongest, most loving woman I know," he declared, his gaze unwavering. Across the room, Selena watched them from her bed, her expression complex, a mix of resignation, perhaps a grudging respect, and an undeniable sorrow. For the sake of baby Rose, a fragile, tentative truce had formed, a path forward, however difficult. Clara held her granddaughter, a tiny, perfect life nestled in her arms. She understood then, with absolute clarity, that her legacy was not in money or property, but in the unwavering, unconditional love that had endured, that had fought its way back, and that would now echo through generations.